Talk about guys coming in who can talk. How'd you get along with the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes?
Oh, man. Man. That's, I mean, so there are moments along the way in your journey in your wrestling career where you know enough about the business as a fan from before you got in, mixed with what you know about certain caliber of talent from within the business. And there are moments when all of that congeals and it's in your mind at the same time. And you realize that even just sharing a locker room with this person, which is all that while Dusty Rhodes was in with us, all that in 2000, I was a commentator doing TNN and stuff. I wasn't with the Dudleys at that point. I was never programmed with him. I never managed his opponent. I never managed him. Just TNN, just color. Just sharing the locker room with him gave credibility to ECW and then gives credibility to you if you're there in the locker room with him. And it's just one of those moments where you kind of know that you've made it. And seeing him in the locker room and him being in with us for a few months, there was definitely that. Just knowing that, here's this guy, he could be taking indies closer to home. He could be doing personal appearances in a Walmart parking lot, at a Toys R Us. There's so many action figures that he's got already. He could just go to a convention. He could do, even, the year 2000 wasn't the year 2023 with all of the opportunities. It was a different landscape, but he could have still, I know, the narrative is it was at a time for him where it was mutually beneficial. And not only could we use his presence, but he could use being tied in with ECW. And that's not untrue. But you'll never be able to convince me that Dusty Rhodes within pro wrestling couldn't have been anywhere or worked with any people or done anything that he wanted to and made the money that he was making in ECW. And even though ECW didn't at all times resemble and in all ways resemble the NWA or the WWF, it didn't deter him. He still came in and gave us a chance. Seeing guys like him, Sid Vicious, Scott Hall, seeing those guys come in, Jake Roberts, just really, really, got the message home that, it was just one of those moments where I couldn't believe he was there. And I was so thankful to be able to kind of, you try to, it was like a seesaw where like the locker room, instead of everybody being spread out and wanting their own space, when Dusty Rhodes was around, it was like 50 guys sitting on one side of the seesaw and nobody on the other. Everybody just wanted to kind of be at the foot of the learning tree and, just hear different phrases that they hadn't heard before, different ways of, talking about stuff in the business. And it was just a great time. Yeah.
You
Really
hear
cool.
you hear pretty much the same story from everybody when ECW comes to an end. Everyone was in the dark. No one knew what was going on. They weren't even sure, if it was the end, if it wasn't the end. What was your experience like? I mean, you gave up college for ECW. You're all in. You're as all in as you can get. And then the company closes. What was that like for you? What was your experience? What did you know about the end?
Didn't really know. Like if I had to put it on a scale from 0 to 10, it would be closer to 0 than 10 as far as having a ton of information. Didn't really know. Um, and that's okay. But didn't really know. Along the way, in our unofficial partnership, our official partnership with WWF, any of the stuff going on the WCW end with like, how often were Paul and Kevin Sullivan talking, Todd Gordon, the Mole, all these different things. Like I didn't really know, um, and it just was what it was. You got to remember this is at a time where, depending on who's booking Nitro, like over there, nobody really knows anything. The boys, they're working the boys on camera. You know what I mean? Like they're just, I mean, it was just a time where everything was so, it was a three-way war, you know, and it was just, everybody was so guarded. And I don't know if people thought that if I had certain information that I would divulge it, because I was a big super fan and tape trader before I got in. So, you know, going back to what we were talking about before, like when I first got in, everybody kind of kept me at arm's length. You know, socially that changed over time, year to year to year. But with some of the kind of major need to know basis stuff, I was not, you know, I did not have the need to know. And there was a lot of stuff that I didn't. The checks towards the end started maybe alternating, like one would clear, one wouldn't. So there were a couple months towards the end of 2000 or whatever that, you know, essentially you're working 4 weekends, you're getting paid for 2. Then, you know, right, that something like, you know, at least there's trouble, or, you know, there's the writings on, you know, depending on how negative you want, but, you know, then, you know, something's up if the checks all of a sudden, if there's problems. Like we had a pay-per-view, the last one that we did right before we did that Arkansas weekend in January of 2001, we had the pay-per-view in the city in Manhattan. And I knew because the first, I think it happened in this order. The first thing that happened was I was up in the locker room and I was like teary-eyed, like I was like red-eyed, and I was just kind of like not myself, and I was kind of out of it. And I had just started managing, I was programmed with Christian York and Joey Matthews. And I was in the locker room with them, and I was like, if you guys would have only got here 2 or 3 years ago. And I just kind of left it at that and just sat there. That, I think, happened first. And then later in the night, like second half of the show, I walked out of the building to the truck. I forgot if like maybe I had a question, or I think I probably did just want to ask Paul about like what day that week we were going to meet up in Westchester at the studio or whatever. And, you know, I wanted to kind of get, you know, information. I mean, I probably would have seen him before I left or whatever, but I just, you know, I walked towards the truck for whatever reason I did. And Paul pulled me aside and he was like, so want to let you know, after this show, and I forget whether we had run the billboard yet for the March show or not, but we were supposed to do Living Dangerously again, another version of that. That was like next pay-per-view, March 2001, Living Dangerously. And I forget whether we put that title card up or not yet. And I asked Paul, you know, about like schedule for post-production. And he said, so after tonight, Joel, there's going to be a little bit of downtime. And that was it. Because I didn't do the Arkansas weekend because it wasn't for TV. I was doing TNN at the time. It was house shows. So I didn't get sent to house shows. So that pay-per-view was my last night in. So, so yeah, a little bit of downtime, right? And that's, it's just, and it's nobody's fault. It's just the business, and it's just the landscape, and it's just the cards falling the way they do, you know, the chips falling as they may, and you play the hand that you're dealt and stuff. But yeah, you know, it was sad. It was, so, you know, I didn't know. I was just kind of piecing it together, and just kind of, you know, every time something that was, you know, bad would play out, it would have to play out first, and it would have to become the writing on the wall, you know?
Okay, so let's plug your stuff. How can people reach you? Promoters want to reach you. Fans want to hear your podcast, your YouTube. Let's hear it.
All right. So you can reach me, gosh, I would say my Instagram is Quintessential Stud Muffin. My TikTok is Quintessential Stud Muffin. My Twitter is Stud Muffin Says. I host a podcast called 69-Minute Eargasm. You can find that wherever podcasts are, wherever you're going for all of your other podcasts that you listen to, you can find us there. You can also now find us on YouTube. We have our own YouTube channel. So 69-minute Eargasm. What else do I have going on? I'm going to be at Legends of Hamburg in early September in Hamburg, Pennsylvania at the Fieldhouse. It's actually September 16th. 2 weeks after that, on September 30th, I'm going to be at 90s Wrestling Con that Tommy Fierro is producing in New Jersey. Yeah, are you going to be there?
I help Tommy with all his events. I can't wait to
nice.
see you. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Nice.
So yeah, Hamburg in September, Hamburg on the 16th, 90s Wrestling Con in Jersey on the 30th. I do charity resale auctions on my Facebook. So facebook.com/MXW Joel Gertner. It's my main personal page on Facebook. So it's the one that's got, I guess, as close to 5,000 followers as whatever, because that's where the max out is. I say that because like there are a few different pages. But if you can find my main primary Facebook page, and I hype this stuff, you know, once you're kind of, if you can find me on one social media channel, especially two, you're going to find me on all 5, 6, 7, whatever it is. But we do these auctions. I'd like to be doing them every, let's say, 2 or 3 weeks. I think effectively I do them closer to about once a month. St. Jude is a frequent beneficiary almost every time. The one that we just did a week or two ago, half of the proceeds going to St. Jude, the other half going to Shotzi's sister's GoFundMe. So I'm doing that. Cameo. Yeah, I'm on Cameo. So you can find me there, cameo.com/Joel Gertner, Pro Wrestling Tees/Joel Gertner. I've got trading cards, ECW trading cards from Historical Cards and Collectibles. I'm going to be letting people know about those in the next week or so online. Action figures are coming out in the next few months. Yeah, just trying to stay busy.